And I have an office down in the Haywood house, down in downtown Bucksport, so that big circle next to the ice cream shop. The ice cream shop should owe me a commission because everyone who comes to see me immediately goes and gets ice cream. We do estate planning and elder law, and if you don't know what that means, estate planning is the way you plan for your end of life. So, wills, trusts, financial and medical powers of attorney. And elder law is helping you get taken care of in the end of your life, which generally means finding you long-term care and ways to pay for it. In this state, that's usually Maine care, if you can't private pay yourself. So what I brought a bunch of reading material here today because what Liz told me is that a bunch of you had questions on how to prevent the problem that Deb found herself in when Rob died. I don't kind of want to divulge all of Deb's business, so what I thought I would do is let you guys just bring up questions and concerns. I'll pass this reading material around so that you have material to look at. I brought something that, the thickest one, it's about the probate process here in Maine and what a personal representative is and what they do. We have a pretty simple probate process here in the state. It's really informal. We don't really get much of anyone involved. We simply file probate paperwork, appoint a personal representative, and then you do what you have to do to settle the estate. The only time a judge gets involved is if there's a fight between the parties and it goes formal. It rarely ever goes formal. Even if there's a fight between the parties, the attorneys can help settle the issues and it doesn't ever have to go formal. So that's why our probate judge here in Hancock County is part-time because he doesn't have to come in all that often. So there's that. I also have a couple of checklists, and I have these because the thing that I suggest to most people in terms of getting affairs in order, it's not just the will and the powers of attorney that help you get things in order. You have to know where your assets are. You have to know how many assets you have, what they're worth. And if your husband is the one who does all of your planning and pays all your bills and knows where all your assets are, you could get in a lot of trouble if something happens to him. So even if you don't want to be the one who's responsible for paying the bills, you should at least sit down and put together a list so that you know you have a checking account at Seaboard, you have a savings account at Seaboard, you have a checking account at Key, you own property, here's where the deed is. You know, that way you know where things are so that if something does happen to him, you can go get that checklist, you know where everything is. Okay? So these checklists kind of just give you an idea as to what you need to look at in terms of getting those lists together if something happens. And if you're the one who pays all the bills, sit down with him and go through it with him. I'm the one who pays the bills in our family, and my husband and I have a checklist that we've hidden in the house somewhere so that he knows if something happens to me, this is what's going to happen. Do your estate planning together. Some attorneys won't do it because there is this whole conflict of interest if one of you wants something that the other one doesn't. I don't have a problem doing that because I generally have you guys talk it out and you'll either waive the conflict or I'll find you attorneys who will work with you separately. The reason I say do it together is because you don't want to go and do your will and then find out when your husband passes away that he gave everything to so-and-so and he actually had all the property in his name, so you've been left with nothing, which has happened before. So do it together so you know where everything is and where everything goes. The last thing I have is, it's just a little 4-page thing that explains the difference between a will and a trust. And I have it in there just so you can see what the pros and cons of wills and trusts are. 99% of people in this state will use a will. Trusts are pretty much used if your state's over the taxable limit, which right now federally is $5 million, and if you're married, $10 million. And in the state it's $1 million, but it's going up. I know, right? It's going up in 2013 to $2 million in this state. So if your state is above $2 million, you might want to look at a trust. But a lot of that tax planning can be done in a will too. Wills are generally cheaper because they're less time consuming to draft, less paper heavy. The average trust is probably anywhere between 50 to 80 pages, whereas a will is about 25 to 40, depending on what you're doing with all your stuff. So as I said, they're cheaper, they're less time consuming, they're less paper heavy. The other reason I would suggest a trust is if you own property in other states. If those other states have difficult probate processes. And I say this so if you own a house in Maine and you also own a house in New York, We have a simple probate process. Like I said before, you file the paperwork, you go about your business. New York doesn't. New York stands over your shoulder and watches every single thing you do, which can be complicated. So if you have property in a state like that, like New York or California, or I think even Nevada's like that, you're going to want to have your property held in a trust, because then it never has to go through probate. It's privately distributed. So any questions that you might have based off that? That's kind of, I just wanted to give you an overall bubble. Yeah.
Would you mind expanding a little bit, and I just want to play dumb,
Sure.
when you're talking about things going to probate and end-of-life property, and
Sure.
just go through that a little bit. I mean, I sort of know and I sort of don't, but maybe if you expand, I'll have more specific questions.
Sure. If you have a
Like
will,
what happened, you know, what
yeah.
happens.
If you have a will, or if you don't have a will, which is called dying intestate in this state, when you pass away, everything that is held solely in your name goes through probate. That does not mean joint tenancy. So if you're married and you own your house jointly with your husband, that won't count. And it doesn't count like bank accounts that are held jointly. And it does not count anything that has a beneficiary designation, like a life insurance policy or a retirement plan or some IRAs. But everything that's solely in your name. So if you own the house, but your husband lives there, the house will go through probate. Probate means you will fill out paperwork telling the court, well, not you because you'll have passed away, but your personal representative will fill out paperwork saying, I want to be the personal representative, or I'm the personal representative under their will. You'll file the original will with the court. You'll tell the court how much the estate is worth, because the court cares about that. Primarily because how much the estate is worth determines how much their fees are, but because we have a simple probate process. But if it ends up going formal, the court needs to know what the estate is worth for the formal process. So pretty much that's it. I mean, really, once the PR is appointed, it's their responsibility to distribute the assets. If what you own is a house, and in your will you said my house goes to my husband, your personal representative and the attorney who's in charge of the estate will write a deed to your husband. And so they'll just distribute the assets like that.
Do they have to pay inheritance taxes on those assets?
Only if your estate's over $5 million, $1 million, or $10 million.
When you say formal, what you just said, formal?
Yeah.
What
Our
does that
probate
mean?
process is informal.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's that whole just file the paperwork, distribute the property. Somewhere down the line you'll close the estate. Formal is a judge is involved, somebody's challenging the will, somebody didn't, the personal representative who was appointed maybe is mentally incapacitated now and can't do it, and so they have to pick someone else. That's when it goes formal, because then you've got people fighting and a judge has to get involved. If a judge doesn't have to be involved, it's informal, you handle it all on your own.
You're being barked at.
Yeah, someone has questions.
No, I've got my will all done, and I've eliminated everybody I didn't want to get anything.
Good.
And I have a power of attorney that gets everything, so I shouldn't have any trouble, should I?
As long as you have a financial power of attorney that can help you if you become mentally incapacitated during your lifetime.
If what?
You become mentally incapacitated during your lifetime.
Hopefully not, I'll jump off the bridge first.
That is our really nice way of saying you get dementia, or you get Alzheimer's, or you're in a coma.
Yeah.
Well, and that actually raises a question I would have. So say you don't have somebody in your life that you particularly trust that much. Is there a way to, I mean, I know with children they get a lawyer for the courts to watch over something. What do you do if you don't have somebody that you would trust to be power of attorney?
You can hire a professional to do it. So I'm actually the named power of attorney under a couple of powers of attorney. Those ones don't come into effect until doctors sign the powers of attorney saying that they're effective, because I don't want that responsibility until I have to have it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
like
but-
if somebody is in a coma or something like
The
that.
things you have to think about in doing that, though, is that a professional is going to take fees.
Okay.
Because it's time consuming for us. That's part of our business. Obviously, our fee for being a power of attorney is not going to be the same as the fee for being a lawyer, because some of us just aren't that mean. Some of us have billable hours of close to $300 in this state, and that would be really, really unfair to charge $300 because you spent an hour paying the bills. So you can, if you want to, hire professionals. We are available to do that, and most of us are happy to do it, because this is an important thing. If you don't have a power of attorney, something happens to you, your family has to take you to court and have a judge get involved and get a conservatorship over you. And once a conservatorship is established, every action you need to be taken on your behalf, the court has to give permission for. Sometimes the court can say no. And the thing that needed to happen really, really needed to happen, and the court doesn't want to do it. So if you want to keep the court out of it, which I promise you do, then the power of attorney is an important thing to have.
And when did you say that under what circumstances might the court get involved?
If you don't have a power of attorney, but you get to the point where you can't handle your own affairs anymore.
Okay.
So dementia, Alzheimer, coma, or something just happens and you're just overwhelmed and don't want to handle it and your family's concerned.
And can't you can be very specific about what powers of attorney, what powers you give to the powers of attorney.
Oh, yes.
Someone could just pay your bills, for
Yeah.
example, not make medical decisions, or
Well, in this state, they're two different forms.
Correct.
Our powers of attorney, we have a financial and we have a health care. Our financial power of attorney literally means they can do everything that you can do in terms of your finances. So they can pay your bills, they can pay your taxes, they can rent your property, they can sue someone for misusing the property you rented. They can do everything you can do. The medical one is making medical decisions. It allows you to appoint an agent who can step in and make medical decisions for you. But it also gives you a section where you dictate what those decisions would be if you could make them yourself. So if your agent's unavailable for whatever reason, the doctor still knows what to do. But it also provides a guidepost for your agent so that they make the right decisions. They make the decisions you want them to make. It also provides a section in the back for you to donate organs, tissue, stuff like that. And there's also a section back there for explaining what your burial wants are. Because not everybody, don't ever put your burial wants in your will. I'm just going to get this out there right now. Because by the time you get to the point where we're going to bury you, or by the time we get to the point where we've read your will, you're already buried. And if you didn't want to be buried,
Well,
sorry.
where do you put that?
You put it in the healthcare. You put it in the healthcare power of
I've got
attorney.
your phone.
In the healthcare power of attorney in the back, there's a section, and you can say, my husband gets my body, or you can say, my husband gets my body, I'm supposed to be cremated at this place, and my ashes dispersed here. And that way it's there, it's in hand, no one has to go looking for it.
Okay, in
So
the
you have-
medical power of attorney.
But you have to designate who gets the body.
Not necessarily, if you
Okay.
don't, it'll just be your next of kin. So
Yeah.
if you're married,
Shit.
it'll be your spouse.
Okay.
If you're not married, it'll be whoever's next.
And if your next of kin is evil, you should actually pick somebody.
You should pick someone.
if you're not married and don't have kids, then you should.
Then you should probably pick someone, because then they'll go to they'll go down the family tree as far as they can, and if they can't find anyone, they'll pick a close friend or a neighbor.
Just what I want, my neighbor. Just take my body, I don't know why you.
Shrunken heads posted.
The worst part is the government's written all your property if you're sick. Is it better, like for instance, my son is my power of attorney, is it better to have him write on the deed so half of it's his anyway?
Not necessarily.
No?
No. The state can come in if you require Maine Care to pay for your long-term care in this state, and you pass away while having received Maine Care. Any property that's in your name at the time of your death is subject to a state recovery. Oh, she timed out because we weren't doing anything.
Okay.
Or she hung up on us. Maybe she got sick of me.
I think she's redialing.
Yeah,
Do we have the
Yeah,
answer?
you gotta
Yeah,
chat, you gotta.
Sounds like an
I don't want to answer
It's like
her.
a 5-year
underwater.
I know.
Yeah.
timing.
How do you
So-
answer?
Maybe I just ought to give my son my home and hope I live 5 years.
That is something that you can do. It's
Yeah.
something I'm helping someone do right now, because you do have, once you give property away, you have a 5-year window in which you will not qualify for Maine Care.
Yeah. Well, I don't intend to, I intend to work my butt off.
She's offline.
Did you just
She went
backing up
offline.
again? You went very
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all
Wait
right.
till she
With
goes
power of
back
attorney,
online again.
they're making decisions, but you can have a will that,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can have power of attorney, and the power of attorney has to deal with your end of
Will,
life.
yeah.
It has to deal with your will, right?
Yeah.
Your
It
will
has
and
to
your power-
execute the,
Your will and your power of attorney are two separate things.
Right.
Your power of attorney works while you're alive. The minute you're dead, that power of attorney is done. It doesn't exist anymore. So if you named an agent in that power of attorney, and you told them, and you thought that they were going to be handling your will, they're not. If you name them as agent, and you also name them as personal representative in your will, then what'll happen is their power will terminate once you pass away, and then once probate process is started, it'll pick back up again. So there will be a window of time where they will be powerless.
So is that the what's it called?
Executor. We call them a personal representative here.
Oh, it's not called,
No, for some reason they don't like saying executor. It's much more fun to type out personal representative.
okay, that's the same thing.
Same thing.
That's what happens with power of attorney.
Now, everybody here has a business.
Mhm.
So if our name is the only one on the business,
Goes through probate.
it goes through probate, and what,
If it's a sole proprietorship, if it's its own legal entity like an LLC or S corp or C corp, whatever, it exists beyond your lifespan.
okay,
So you should have, if you have an LLC, you have to have contingencies for that to continue. So those contingencies will kick in when you pass away. If it's a sole proprietorship though, it'll be part of your estate when you pass away. So if you want it to exist beyond you, then you should name someone else to take it over.
okay,
They can continue it like they continue Maine Bites. They can continue the name.
okay.
But like the bank accounts that existed when Rob passed away were part of his estate.
Okay, so in that case, it would be better for people who are in partnerships to have both names on the properties, on the checking accounts, the bills, everything?
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
not the bills.
well, I mean,
Right, keep your names.
in a way, yes. I mean, in that case, yes, because then it would be considered jointly owned and it wouldn't go through probate. But you also have to be careful because by adding another person's name to the business assets, you're making those business assets subject to their potential creditors. So if they get in a car accident and their insurance doesn't cover all the expenses and all they've got is the business assets, those are subject to pay for the expenses.
Okay.
So you want to be careful about adding stuff like that. If you're going to add another person, you might want to think about seeing CC and turning into an S corp or an
Okay.
LLC.
Okay, okay. Deb, did you want to ask something?
I can't see you anymore, but I just want to recommend, I want to recommend Candace to everybody. She literally saved my life, made me realize what an ass I was, that I didn't know these things, and made me really pissed off that we don't know these things. So I cannot recommend her enough, not just as a lawyer, but as a person. She really took her time to explain things to me because I was a bit lost with probate and health and I also had to do guardianship of my daughter, which is not a pleasant thing to do. I can't speak enough about her, and I will continue to write major testimonials all over the internet about her. I recommend her not just dealing with wills, but also dealing with your business, because I think it's very, very important. Don't be an ass like me and let somebody else handle your affairs. You know, that's kind of how I want to end that.
And like I said, I mean,
Sorry,
if you have that spousal dynamic where, you know, it's very much one person's job to handle the finances, that's totally fine. Just make sure you know where things are and you know what's going on,
Right.
you know?
But if one person is handling it and something happens to that person, isn't it harder for the other person because they have to go and switch the names over and...
And not to be a buzzkill, but I went through a really traumatic divorce, and he knew where everything was and I didn't.
Yep.
So I lost out on about $500,000 worth of retirement stuff that I just didn't know existed.
Yep.
So it
Which is why-
works for all ways.
Yeah.
That's when you get a financial auditor to audit your books. Because
So,
they can't
but
find
it works
they
for
can't
all ways,
hide
not just thinking about the possibility of your partner passing, but the possibility that some horrible catastrophe is going to happen in your personal life, and you need to know where that stuff is too.
I mean, and just in general circumstances, you should know what you're worth, you know?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you might have insufficient life insurance right now, you know, and you might not know it. So you should really just know what you're worth.
Is that something you have, like a sheet? I mean, I know they exist, you know, for your house and all of the things, all your possessions, et cetera, your property, and you can add it all up.
Yeah, I mean, you
For
can,
insurance purposes.
yeah, and you really should. I mean, if you have a business, you should have life insurance, just because you don't want to leave your spouse saddled with whatever debt the company might have. You know, I'm actually in the process right now of buying it because in addition to the business, I have oodles of law school loans that I don't want to leave him saddled with. So, you know, you've got to cover all of your bases if you know that you don't have the cash assets out there to cover your debts when you pass away or if something happens to you.
But would they be responsible if their name's not on the business?
It could be.
They could be.
I'm sorry, something just passed over me, forgive me. What do you do in that case? You have insurance.
You have life
You
insurance.
have life
yeah.
insurance to cover any of the, even if it's business debts.
Yeah, I mean, what happens when you pass away, if you have more debts than you have assets, whatever assets you have go to cover the debts. And so there could, potentially be nothing left in the estate in the end. But like in our circumstances, I own our house. Our house is in my name only, it's not in his because he has questionable credit from stupid decisions in college. So the house is in my name and it's our only primary asset right now. Then I have the business and I have a loan on the business so that I could start it. And I have law school loans. If something happens to me, he's gonna lose the house because it's the only thing that I have. So if I have life insurance, I can get enough life insurance to pay my law school loans, pay the loan that I have for the business, and pay the mortgage on the house.
And when you're figuring your worth, would you also, because you're a new mother, if you're also a caretaker of other people, would you also take into account what it would cost to pay for a caretaker so that the other person could work and things like that in your amount?
I actually have a built-in buffer for him just because I know it's going to take him a while to get over it. It's going to take him a while before he can get back in the world. And I want to make sure that she is taken care of just fine. So I do have a built-in buffer in mind, but it's not going to last him forever.
Right.
It's just, it's what I can afford at this time. And in the future, I'm doing a term life insurance because life changes. The whole life at my age is ridiculously bad because it's expensive, first of all. And because I'm not always going to be in my 30s owning a house with a whole lot of debt because of student loans. And so it would be stupid for me to take out this whole life policy worth all this money and then not need it in the future. So I'm doing a term policy right now that's just going to cover if something happens to me in the next 5 to 10 years. And then in 5 to 10 years, I'll reevaluate and do another one.
Yeah, and if you wait a little my age, you can't afford the term policies.
And at some age, at some point in your life, when you
Right.
get to the point where your debts and your assets about level out, that's when you look into a whole life because that starts to become an asset as it accumulates cash and value. So
who do you go to? I see ads all the time for life insurance. Who do you go to find out about?
I actually recommend people go to JT Rossborough and Ellsworth. I've worked with them before and I really like them. Cece, do you have any recommendations for?
Life insurance, no.
Yeah, I really like them.
Liberty Mutual, we have ours through Liberty Mutual.
All my property insurance is through Liberty Mutual.
And,
What about Key? What was it called? Key. It's a business. It's a type of business insurance. It's like Key employee insurance.
Never
Okay.
heard of it.
Well, I got pneumonia for I was down 8 weeks. It was ridiculous. And somebody told me if I'd had Key employee insurance, it would have acted almost like disability insurance, but it's for sole proprietors.
Interesting.
And the idea is basically you pay into it, and if you can't work for X period of time, they can, again, just like
So it's like
disability
Aflac
insurance.
for sole business.
Yeah.
It's
And,
combined insurance, I think it's called.
Yeah, he
For
was calling it.
self-employment.
Yeah, it was Jeff Ackerman actually was recommending it. And he was saying it was called Key Employee Insurance.
Something
And then that
like
way, if
to-
you get another key employee who your business cannot live without, you can include them in the policies.
Something to look into because I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, because that might even be good in your case.
Yeah.
If you're
Well,
that-
also, there are insurances health insurances that we can get at discounted prices through the chambers that we belong to. So I'm gonna bring that information to you next meeting.
That's something I would love to know.
Yeah.
I pay through the news.
Yeah.
What company is the through?
I think it's, in Maine, everything is Anthem.
Is what?
Is Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, everything in Maine.
Yeah.
Now, whether the healthcare law is gonna change that, I don't know.
I know, because they bounce around between Anthem and Blue Cross Blue Shield like crazy from the time I was with my second husband even.
Well, I know I was looking at less expensive insurance, and the state has made it so that it's a monopoly in the state of Maine. In other states, you might be able to shop around
Yep.
for health insurance, but when you find it, it says not available in Maine,
Right,
not
exactly.
available in
No,
Maine.
that's-
And it's because the legislature had passed a bill that said, this is who we're going to allow to operate in the state of Maine. I don't know if the federal insurance policy or healthcare is gonna negate that, because one of the premises is that it's gonna be allowing people
Yeah.
to shop around for less expensive insurance.
We'll find out
I get the
soon enough.
And that's,
point now
if it
anyway.
opens up state to state,
Right,
that would be, I mean, we need something.
Yeah, yeah.
Some competition, it's
Right.
crazy,
right,
yeah.
so,
Yeah, the only good thing about old age is you can get on Martin's Point.
Yeah.
It saves you a lot of money.
how old? How old is old?
What, 62 or 65?
I think you have to qualify for Social Security to qualify for Martin's Point.
Yeah, as long as
so
you're getting your Social Security.
Okay.
You have to be getting your Social Security
What
and
is
then you
Martin's
can
Point? I'm
part
sorry,
one.
is that-
It's just reduced health insurance for people who are receiving Social Security, basically for elderly.
Really? So you get that besides?
It's something you apply for separately. Not everybody will qualify for it, but it's something you can apply for separately. So if you just like Google it, you'll find more information about it.
That was another bridge.
We were talking at one point about qualifying for Maine care or long-term care, and I'm not going to get too much into that because none of you are really at that point where you need to worry about it just yet. But when you do get to that point, talk to an attorney before you do anything. At this point in life right now, if you give valuable assets away for less than their fair market value, you won't qualify for Maine care assistance for 5 years. And I'm talking about long-term care, not like general health insurance care. I'm talking about like you're in the nursing home, skilled nursing facility. And actually Maine just changed the law so that even if you're in residential care facility, which means that you're still with it, but you're just not able to live on your own anymore. I call it dorm living. So if you're dorm living, the penalty applies to that now too.
So it's 5 years before.
It's 5 years before you, what happens is you give stuff away and then you make your application, and what they say is you don't qualify for a certain amount of time. And what that amount of time is the value of the gift divided by 7660, because that's what the number is right now. So it'll be a certain number of months. It could be anywhere from 2 or 3 months to years, up to 5 years.
Up to 5 years.
Again, could you be more specific? Are you talking about giving away all your possessions?
Yep.
So you don't
Yeah.
have any money, and then
Your house.
your house, et
cars,
cetera, you
your-
gifted everything, and then you have whatever you have left.
Yeah, what happens is to qualify for Maine care, you have to have less than $10,000 in assets. You can have a house, you can have a car, and you can have $10,000, and that's it. And so what people were doing is they saw that and said, oh, okay, well, I can only have $10,000, so they started giving everything away. And so what the state and the federal government is saying is you can't do that. You have to come by that $10,000 honestly. You can't come by it by having given everything away. And so by giving stuff away, you incur a penalty where you need Maine care. You need it. You're sick, you have dementia, you're in the nursing home. It's $8,000 a month coming out of your pocket right now, but you don't qualify because you gave stuff away. So there are ways to get around that, because that's what lawyers do. They get around things. And so we do have ways to get around the penalties right now, but it's going to evolve. It's going to change. Like this whole penalizing residential care thing just started a couple of days ago. So it keeps changing.
What does that
What
mean,
about-
penalizing residential?
Residential care is dorm living.
Okay.
What I was just saying is dorm living.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's
It's like assisted living, but it's not as bad.
yeah, you have different levels of nursing
Right,
home care.
right.
You have residential care and you have skilled care. Skilled care is you need someone with you all the time because you can't
Right.
function anymore. Residential care, you probably function, but maybe you're not quite so good at taking your meds, or you're not good at, bathing yourself, or you're in a wheelchair and you just can't, maneuver your house anymore. So it's something like that,
Okay.
where there's something in your assisted daily living skills that's missing. And what's happened is they've started penalizing gifts made for even those who need residential care, which is new.
Okay.
Question, back, just like a little bit back.